Liverpool fans will probably need to maybe temper expectations slightly in that, like, you're just not going to replace him. Like, you're not.
Barcelona aren't shopping at Waitrose or M&S for their managers. No, they're at Lidl. They're at Aldi.
Yeah.
They're going for the bargains. They're going for the bargain buckets at KFC. They don't have great options. Hello and welcome back to Monday Vibes. Happy Monday, everybody. It's myself and my Cubs as usual. My Cubs, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Had a nice weekend.
Bit of band practice.
Had a bit of band practice, yeah.
This guy's a bit of a rock star.
Working on my childhood dream of being both a football pundit and a rock star at the same time.
Well, one already ticked.
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe in 6 months' time, I will officially be able to say that I'm a rock star, but we'll see. Yeah, good weekend, Dukes. Bit of magic in the cup as well. Maidstone, what a story that is. I think they're the first team since the National League North and South became a thing in 2004. They're the first team from that low down to actually make it as far as the FA Cup fifth round. Great
finishes as well.
Amazing finishes, amazing goalkeeping performances. If he's not, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's not playing in like at least League Two by next season, I will be surprised. And also I think it's the first time since like 1993 or 1994 that a club from that low down has beaten a club from the top two divisions on their first attempt in the FA Cup or something like that. So yeah, really amazing stuff from Maidstone. United. Yeah, that was great. Like, to be honest, I loved it. Like, it was, for Man United to go away to Newport and actually be, get rattled, especially after being quite comfortable early on. I thought like a really, really good performance from Newport County. And yeah, I guess a bit of a shame for them that they couldn't capitalise on United's shaky start to the second half. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, if that had happened, then the title of today's episode would have been a tough one, because we obviously really we are going to dig into Klopp and Xavi. If United had lost yesterday against Newport, then who knows
have to rip
what the media narrative around Ten Hag would be at this moment in time.
Getting pretty noisy.
It would be getting incredibly noisy. United out of the, with no silverware up for grabs
at the end of January.
It would have been pretty shocking stuff. But Duke, should we get on to the crux of the episode?
Yes, let's.
Because obviously, huge news on Friday. Sadly, we filmed Sunday Vibes on Thursday afternoon, so we were unable to catch the wave of Jurgen Klopp announcing his resignation from Liverpool. But not only that, we had Xavi post Villarreal loss announcing that he was going to resign from his position at Barcelona at the end of the season. Both quite emotional resignations, really, given Xavi's history at Barcelona, given what Klopp has achieved for Liverpool. Shall we start at Liverpool?
Yeah, I think so.
That was the first announcement, and the bigger announcement in many ways. I think even a lot of Barcelona fans were not. I think even when Xavi came in at Barcelona, I don't think that many people expected him to still be there in, say, 5-6 years' time, given the state of the club, given that Xavi's relative inexperience, given that, not many managers last more than 3 or 4 years at Barcelona. Even Pep was only there for, 4 years when he left. So let's start with Klopp. I mean, first of all, Dukes, like, how surprised were you when the news broke on Friday?
Like, hugely surprised. I mean, George Wright put it in the Football Daily chat, and I thought it was a hoax. I was like, what's your source? And he was like, Liverpool, the club. I just couldn't believe it, because I don't think anyone saw it coming, really. I mean, this season, I think, has probably been one of his most impressive managerial achievements so far. I mean, we'll see where it ends up, but the chance to win 4 trophies, people calling it a quadruple. It's not a quadruple. You're going for the Europa League, but it is still 4 massive.
I mean, it's still 4 incredibly
trophies.
Impressive, and like the Europa League is not easy to win.
My point is that you can't call it a quadruple when it is not a quadruple.
Yeah, I mean, it is a quadruple. It's not the quadruple.
Fine.
I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, it's 4 trophies. Is how I'd say. Anyway, that is missing the point, because it has been a remarkable achievement. I think given the turnover in the summer, given the fact Henderson left, Fabinho, two massive, totems of their success over the last few years, and the change that they had, not getting the defensive midfielder that they wanted, a number of new forwards signed in the last 18 months, 2 years, needing to step up with Mane and Firmino now having both gone. It felt like it was going to be a transitional year for Liverpool.
Yeah.
So to be in this position, 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League, although City do have a game in hand, into the FA Cup next round with a comfortable victory over Norwich, into the Carabao Cup final, a Europa League last 16 tie to look forward to as well. It's been a really, really special season. In terms of timing, I think it's quite interesting timing, because he did say that he told the club in November. So the club have had, 2 months, nearly 2 months, it depends when he told him in November, maybe over 2 months, to start looking at that new candidate, start looking at his replacement. Could they have carried on doing that in peace? I think it's a potentially interesting one. There is so much speculation. You saw the emotion before an FA Cup tie against Norwich. That is potentially going to work in their favour, but it could potentially become quite draining. 6 months of speculation around who could be that replacement. Now, I think most Liverpool fans' dream is for it to be announced maybe in sort of March time who's going to take over. That candidate doesn't ruin the end of their season, and he arrives on a sort of fanfare, and there's a little bit more stability behind the scenes as well, because it's not just Klopp, it's his entire coaching staff looks like they're leaving as well, so it doesn't look like it's going to be Pep Lijnders unless there's a surprise. George Shamadka is leaving as well, so that's a lot of change at one go. But in terms of what Klopp's achieved, he almost feels like, Guardiola in many ways feels like an alien in terms of how he interacts with people, in terms of his sort of mannerisms. Klopp is almost the most human embodiment of management, I think, in the way he, conducts himself in a room, the way he gets the best out of people, the way he plays on your emotions. And I think he's done an absolutely sensational job at Liverpool, taking over from a real period of, there was that season under Brendan Rodgers in 13-14, but other than that, there hadn't been a lot to shout about from Liverpool, and to never finish lower than 5th in any of his 5 full seasons or 6 full seasons at the club, to win every trophy available bar the Europa League, superb work. But I suppose, McCubbs, that leads us on to the candidates, because he leaves enormous shoes to fill.
Yeah, massively, and I think I think it. Liverpool fans will probably need to maybe temper expectations slightly, in that, you're just not going to replace him. You're not. He obviously very quickly, embedded himself within kind of Liverpool's culture, really. And I know, say someone like Rafa Benitez kind of did that as well. Still has a house in Liverpool, I believe. Still lives there
in the world.
I don't know whether he lives there full time or not. But anyway, probably not now that he's managing in Spain. But I digress. All those aspects, and like you say, Dukes, just how human he is, and his kind of morality kind of shines through. When you hear him speak and everything. So to replace him in that sense is going to be really difficult, and his style of play as well is so distinctive. The way that he helped transform it from top to bottom. But like you say, Dukes, that there's it's not just Jurgen Klopp who's leaving a hole there. There have kind of been holes that he's been papering over the last couple of years. Michael Edwards really is, his departure was in some ways more defining in 2022, with the fact that Julian Ward didn't work out as his successor, and then bringing in Schmadtke last year, and the recruitment has remained good, but not quite as well organised, and probably definitely less clinical than it had been in that kind of glorious kind of 2016 to 2019 period. So there's a lot of work to do at Liverpool, and I guess we have to look at the first candidate, who is the outstanding candidate, which is Xabi Alonso. Obviously, Dukes, you've been a massive fan of his work at Bayer Leverkusen. He's obviously I guess he probably is a Liverpool legend, player-wise. Won that Champions League in 2005.
Crucial role in that final as well.
Crucial role in the final, of course. Scored the rebounded penalty that took it to 3-3. One of the best midfielders in Liverpool history. What he went on to achieve at Real Madrid and then Bayern Munich afterwards. amazing. And his managerial career so far has been absolutely flawless. The work that he's done, that he did with the Sociedad B team, and then to bide his time and then eventually take that Leverkusen role. It's just been perfect. And he said back in 2018 that he would potentially want to succeed Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool in an interview with Guillem Balaguer. So he did go early. And it feels in many ways like the logical next step for him. Like, if he were to win the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, ending Bayern Munich's, longer than decade hold on the bully, like, where is the next level? Like, you're already a Champions League level manager, essentially. And I don't think you pivot to like a Spurs level club necessarily after that.
West Ham thought they were going to get him a few months ago.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Liverpool is the logical next step. It's like Real Madrid obviously must be on his radar as well. Obviously must be there, but I think you go to Liverpool first. I think you do go to Liverpool first. I think the Liverpool job is a tougher job in some ways than the Real Madrid job, at least footballing wise. More competitive league for sure. Like, La Liga might be less competitive in 2 years' time than it is now, even depending on where Barcelona go from here. Like, Real Madrid are just on the up. So it's more of a challenge, and in some ways, maybe a Real Madrid in 4 or 5 years' time might be a nice kind of just winning machine for him to join once he's done the work at Liverpool. But on the kind of Leverkusen stuff, obviously he dropped points for the first time in God knows how long on the weekend. There was so much. I mean, I do feel sorry for him. As soon as that Klopp news broke, just before the Friday pressers, I mean, that was all that Xabi Alonso was getting asked about. He obviously said that he's very happy in his job. He's not going to speculate, but there is no doubt that must be playing on his mind now. Like, there's no doubt that the timing of this is less than ideal for Xabi Alonso. He's got Bayern Munich in 2 weeks' time. They're now only 2 points ahead of Bayern Munich in the league. So I think that's very interesting. But he's obviously transformed Bayer Leverkusen. Their XG is up 30% on last season. He took over a club that was, in the relegation zone when he joined, and has revitalised them. The work that he's done very quickly with someone like Victor Boniface, turning him into one of Europe's most prolific strikers. The management, I think, of Florian Wirtz coming back from injury. Jeremy Frimpong kind of upping his game. I mean, there's someone like Piero Hincapié who has really come into his own this year as well. I think he is, he's the manager who I think Liverpool fans rightly want, and I think really if there's the opportunity to go out and get him, I would. There are. I was reading about how his style is different to Klopp's and maybe isn't that suited to this squad. They're a very possession-based side. They play more short passes than anyone else in the league. Liverpool have, transitioned between a number of different styles, from very high counter-pressing to more counter-attacking, full-back-led a play to, what we see now, which is a kind of like hybrid of possession and pressing, and no longer as reliant on width as they once were. But equally, Xabi Alonso is any modern great manager has to be tactically flexible. So I think that's being overplayed a little bit. I think that'd be something. I don't know what you think, Dukes. Would you, if you were the FSG group now, would you be hounding Xabi, saying, this job is yours, if you want to take it?
Hounding's a big word.
Maybe I'm going a bit.
But no. I mean, he is the obvious candidate. He's the candidate that's having the best season by a distance, and you can understand why. Having nailed the transfer window in the summer, pretty much every signing he made being a huge hit. Losing Moussa Diaby was obviously a huge blow, but replacing him so effectively, this has almost been the perfect season for Bayer Leverkusen. And in many ways, even if they don't win the Bundesliga, even if they don't win the Europa League, they haven't had a season like this since the early 2000s, I suppose, when they nearly won the treble. So he has almost achieved everything he can with Bayer Leverkusen. It's a logical step to then step away. Bayern Munich, with their commercial and financial control and might over the rest of the Bundesliga are going to come back really hard next season. You know, if they don't win the Bundesliga, you expect them to potentially make a change in manager, especially if they don't win the Champions League. You know, Bayern Munich, it is difficult to compete with Bayern Munich year on year in there. Whereas you join Liverpool, you have 1 year, and then Pep's supposedly stepping down from Man City.
Although he's flirting with signing a new contract now.
Yeah, exactly. The new dynasty. Well, the continued dynasty, I should say. So, yeah, it's quite an interesting time to take over Liverpool. There is a lot more change behind the scenes than ever before. And slightly, you know, some key players are approaching the end of their careers as well. Salah, Van Dijk, etc. But he'll be really excited by the young players at Liverpool that are now getting quite serious minutes. You know, Curtis Jones, Konate, Nunes, even Luis Diaz isn't that old. Conor Bradley. You know, there are a number of players, Szoboszlai, who are approaching or not even anywhere close to their peak yet. Harvey Elliott, and there's an opportunity to really grow a club there. And with his ties to the club, you'd imagine, and given the turnover this summer at Liverpool, you imagine he'd be given more time and the benefit of time. You know, we're going to get onto Xavi in due course, but he was probably given more leeway and time because of being a club legend. It does impact that. So I think he'd be very, very interested in the Liverpool job, understandably, and I think it's, for a young manager, it's the correct next move. I think Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, they're not going anywhere for a manager like that. Liverpool feels like the club with a lot of risk attached to it because there's so much change there, but a huge upside as well.
Yeah, massively. I do feel like in Xabi's mind, though, this has come a year too early. I think what would have really suited him was Klopp seeing out his contract until 2026 at Liverpool. He has that other year, next year at Bayer Leverkusen. No matter if it's more successful than this season or less, he's just got another year in top-level management to draw on as he takes on a really, really big job. And I think the key with Liverpool, and I think, you know, Klopp is leaving Liverpool in a great state, but you know, what will the recruitment department look like? What will the analytics department look like, you know, under a new manager at Liverpool? Will Xabi be given almost like too much responsibility if he comes in? It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say for any manager what Liverpool's going to look like. But equally, like you saying, Dukes, like there's so much good young talent in that squad, and actually mixed with a good amount of experience as well. Like, talk about Van Dijk, like who knows, Van Dijk might stay at the top of his game. You know, Van Dijk could be a Thiago Silva. You know, he might stay at the top of his game till 36, 37.
Salah's talents aren't diminishing, are they at all?
No. No, not at the moment. He might. I mean, he may slow down. Also, yeah. I mean, that's a worry, isn't it? If Salah were to leave, I think that's, in terms of personnel at the club, in the team, that would probably be my biggest worry, especially with Klopp leaving. Let's run through some other candidates, Dukes. I mean, is like, if it's not Xabi, who would be your go-to next?
I mean, on this list, we've got down De Zerbi, Thomas Frank, Nagelsmann, Postecoglou, or Simone Inzaghi. We've also got an outside shot of Graham Potter. And actually, looking at that list, it's probably Nagelsmann. Yeah. It would be my second choice. I know that he didn't do as well as people maybe expected at Bayern Munich, but I actually think his firing was a little bit harsh. Like, they were playing outstanding football, particularly in the Champions League at that time. Yes, he didn't necessarily manage the egos of the big stars in that team, like Manuel Neuer, Thomas Müller, etc. There was a little bit of a run-in with Matthias de Ligt as well, where he was a little bit critical of him at different points. But some of the attacking football, the goal numbers were excellent, really. They didn't maybe have the solidity that many people expected, but Bayern haven't had that for a long time as well. He also has, you know, played in a similar style of football to Jurgen Klopp at different points. He's done exceptional work at RB Leipzig, exceptional work at Hoffenheim. He's still very young. He's got a lot of energy. The difficulty is that I don't think Germany are going to have a particularly good Euros. So he wouldn't be arriving on a sort of tide of goodwill in the same way that Xabi Alonso would.
And also, do Liverpool want to get in someone after the international tour? Surely someone needs to come in earlier.
Yeah, you need to be there 1st of June. But then I think De Zerbi's a little bit of a risk right now. I think Thomas Frank doesn't have the experience of managing a top club, but would actually interest me quite a lot, I think. Of all Premier League managers, he probably feels like the next one ready for an opportunity. Like, why not? I mean, you can only achieve what you can with the resources you've got. And given the Tony situation, given the injuries they've had to deal with this year, to have never really been in a relegation battle during your time in the Premier League with a club the size of Brentford, no disrespect to them, I think is a really good achievement.
Amazing.
So yeah, I'd be keen on Thomas Frank. And Postecoglou, you kind of missed the boat. I think I can't see him swapping Spurs for Liverpool after a year. I think he'd wait for. He can't leave after a year. I'd be amazed if that happened.
Yeah, it would seem out of character for Postecoglou, but equally Postecoglou would.
He's a Liverpool fan as well.
He'd fit Liverpool really well. Like, I mean, he'd fit a lot of clubs really well. Like, he's just a great character. But like, in terms of having someone, to replace the character of Klopp, I think Postecoglou would be pretty amazing. So yeah, but equally Dukes, I think it's hard to see him leaving that Spurs project after a year.
Who would be your second choice?
I think Thomas Frank would be. I think Thomas Frank in some ways is quite a. It depends where Liverpool want to go. If Liverpool want to be winning titles straight after Klopp, I think Thomas Frank is a risk. But I think if Liverpool want stability and they want someone who gets the way that the club has been run, I think Thomas Frank would be perfect. He's been at Brentford since 2016. He was involved. He was very embedded in the club. He was very heavily involved in transitioning players from the B team to the first team. He's worked at an innovative club that's been kind of at the forefront.
But put analytics at the forefront as well.
Put analytics at the forefront, and made bold decisions like getting rid of the academy for a B team, etc. So he has that first of all. He's worked with a brilliant recruitment team, and again, like with Xabi, who knows what Liverpool's recruitment is going to look like in the future. But he kind of gets that culture, and he first of all has played some great football with a really limited squad, and is very tactically flexible. We've seen Brentford be like a high pressing team, a long ball team, a counter attacking team. A team that has actually, in his first year, played some pretty good football in possession as well. So he's got that in his locker. He's worked, he's developed, great young players over the years as well. Is clearly brilliant at conjuring, a really good team spirit, and the connection with the fans. Like he's really part of the Brentford community. His manner, after games, greeting the crowd.
He puts the foot wrong.
Yeah, it's it almost feels like after every win he's doing a lap of honour.
Yeah.
Great. That's so Klopp. And in that sense, I think I think he is someone who would really quite quickly enamour himself with the Liverpool fan base. So I like that, and I also like Premier League experience. He's got tons of it. He knows the league inside out. He's really well versed in English football. It would feel a little bit like the Brendan Rodgers appointment, I think, Thomas Frank. Albeit I think Thomas Frank is maybe a bit more of a rounded package in terms of his connection with the fans. And people may say, oh well, Brendan Rodgers wasn't necessarily. I think Brendan Rodgers was an amazing appointment at the time actually for Liverpool, and
did a good job,
without Brendan Rodgers, I don't think there would have been a Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. He managed the club in quite a difficult time, and this is not as difficult a time for Liverpool. The squad is in a much better place than it was in 2012. But post-Klopp is going to be difficult in many, many ways. So I think someone like Thomas Frank would be a really sensible shout. And that's kind of like, although he's tainted from his time at Chelsea, that's why I quite like Graham Potter as well. Like he's got those human elements as well as the tactical elements that really set him apart. But yeah, I would go for Thomas Frank if it's not Xabi Alonso. So Inzaghi, I saw The Athletic were talking about him. I mean, in terms of someone who is kind of now a star name and is playing some of the best football in Europe, could you see it happening? Or do you think
not, to be honest, no. Just because, he's so wedded to 3-5-2, which I'm not saying that he couldn't change that up. I think at Lazio he mixed up a little bit more than he has at Inter. But yeah, he's done phenomenally well at Inter, particularly in the Cups, but looks like, they're in a real title battle with Juventus, but, with that goal difference advantage, with that, the fact that Lautaro Martinez is just more consistent than any of the Juventus forwards, the fact Marcus Thuram's hit the ground running as well. I think they will win the league. And, obviously reached a Champions League final last year. It looked like they took a lot of belief from that. The fact that they matched Man City, I think, in that final, really. It wasn't a particularly entertaining game, but Inter caused them a number of issues. Simone Inzaghi, I don't know why. It feels like a bit like if Liverpool went for Diego Simeone. Like it just doesn't feel like the natural progression. Going from Klopp to Inzaghi feels more drastic than Klopp to De Zerbi or Klopp to Postecoglou or definitely Klopp to Nagelsmann or Klopp to Xabi Alonso. There's just something not quite clicking, and I think it's primarily formation based. So I think he's very, very happy in Italy as well.
Yeah.
So I'd be surprised if he wanted to do that. But let's move on to the Barcelona news, because as if we hadn't had enough difficulty digesting that Klopp news, Xavi announced on Saturday that he would be stepping down, as we said at the top of the video, at the end of the season. This didn't feel like anywhere close to as big a surprise.
No.
I think if he hadn't have stepped down, he probably would have been fired at the end of the season.
Potentially.
It has been a disastrous season. He's had a really tough week. They obviously lost 5-3 to Villarreal on Saturday. They got beaten by Athletic Club in the Copa del Rey in midweek. They just took a heavy loss to Real Madrid in the Super Cup. The Champions League remains their only hope of a trophy, really. They're 11 points behind Girona, who have actually played a game more, so that gap could be cut. But I don't think anyone realistically thinks they're going to get themselves into tighter contention this year. And having won the league by 10 points last year, with their best points tally since, I think, 2017-18, it's just been an absolute disaster of a season. And I think a lot of it comes down to the summer, really. I think Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, huge absences. I think as good as Lamine Yamal has been this year, I think they've missed Ousmane Dembele big time in terms of creativity. And there's been a few issues outside of Xavi's control as well. You know, Pedri not being fully fit for the entire season, Gavi's ACL injury. You know, there are some, Ter Stegen picking up big injuries as well. There are some contributing factors, but it has not been an impressive season whatsoever. They've dropped points in 8 of their 22 league games. They only dropped points in 10 last year. They've already conceded 29 league goals. They conceded 20 last year. Their attack in terms of goals per game has actually gone up, which kind of defeats the point I made about Ousmane Dembele. But I do think having the opportunity to rotate Yamal a bit more would be very good. But yeah, only 2 clean sheets in the last 11 games, and big defeats to Girona and Villarreal, or in terms of goals conceded in those games in that time as well. Let's talk about their next manager, McCubs, because Arsenal fans were freaking out a little bit on Twitter, with Mikel Arteta being linked by Sport and Gerard Romero, saying that Arteta, Klopp and Nagelsmann are on the 3-man shortlist to replace Xavi. But Arteta surely not leaving for Barcelona right now.
No, probably not. I mean, let's get real. I mean, was Sport saying that he'd already like
he was definitely
saying that I'd be amazed if that was the case. I think Mikel Arteta there's a lot of unfinished business at Arsenal. I know he's got a lot of power. He's been there 4 years now, which is pretty amazing actually. Arteta at Arsenal, you know, he's not new there anymore. Even if for some reason I still feel like he's fairly fresh.
I think it's because he looks so young.
I just think, there's that. Yeah, just the not aging, which, you know, Jurgen Klopp said something like managers age in dog years. He was saying the other day, which I loved. I think I just don't think I don't see what the appeal is of Barcelona right now to many top young managers, and Mikel Arteta especially, like you say, Dukes. He's got Arsenal in the palm of his hand. He can really do no wrong there. And most of his decisions at the club have worked, and have been greeted as such.
He's been backed financially, which you wouldn't have at Barcelona.
Though certainly wouldn't have that, or at least if you were backed, you wouldn't. You know, it would be with certain caveats. And
pay off the fees over the next 25 years.
Well, yeah, and it's just even my problem with Barcelona is it's not so much the lack of funds, it's the way that, if I'm honest, in my opinion, Laporta just hasn't been a big enough change from the previous regime there. When you look at recruitments, at least, you know, that, you know, Lewandowski in the short term worked, but is very quickly not worked in terms of the money that they spent on him. You know, they haven't pivoted to enough to recruiting young, inexpensive talent. Yes, they've, out of necessity, you know, fast-tracked a lot of La Masia products into the team. You know, Yamal being the kind of outstanding of those this season, but it's still an unsustainable thing. And yes, once the new stadium is completed, we'll kind of have a better idea of like what Barcelona can realistically, post in terms of revenue season on season. But it's a really difficult job to come into, and I think it's telling what Xavi said. Like Xavi didn't beat around the bush. Like he said, he's been mistreated, and there's almost a sense that he himself knew, from having worked under Van Gaal and Rijkaard and Pep Guardiola, that the manager's job at Barcelona is
you
not
don't last long. Yeah.
Well, you just don't. Well, I mean, you just burn out. Like, and it's a damning reflection on the culture of the club, to be honest. Yeah, he is very thankful to Laporta, but you just think like, could there be another way at this? Could there be a way in which managers are protected more from the media? Because it is just an absolute cauldron, and the standards are so high. Regardless of what financial situation the club finds itself, no matter what kind of limitations are placed on the first team, and then when you have your great rivals, winning Champions Leagues and building a team that could dominate Europe for years to come, that only increases the pressure more. So, and to add to that, La Liga is, I know the Girona story is brilliant this year, but generally speaking is, not as enticing as it once was. What kind of pulling power do Barcelona have, in the long term? What kind of money can they offer for Europe's top players? Like, yeah, from Arteta's perspective, I don't see it. From Jurgen Klopp's perspective, if they're looking at him, definitely don't see it.
If he's tired as well.
If he's pretty tired and wants to live a normal life, I think if there's any, Barcelona, the Barcelona manager's job is like, is as resembles as little to normal life as possible in the managerial world. Even then, Julian Nagelsmann, if he's on their radar, maybe he would take the job, given that he's still young, he's hungry, but he's got something to prove. And Barcelona is maybe quite a good club to go to if you have something to prove like that, if you're not already in a comfortable situation and you want to take on a real challenge, and take on the Catalan media. Maybe Julian Nagelsmann will like that, but I mean, shall we go through some of the other candidates?
Yeah, why not?
Maybe some of the more like sensible ones, maybe like managers who, because it does kind of feel like, especially after Xavi, who not a disaster by any means, like did win La Liga last year, played some great football in his time, did some good work in terms of revitalising La Masia, which, to be fair to Ronald Koeman, he was already doing a bit with getting Xavi into the team before he left. I guess someone like, Rafa Marquez, first of all, the B team coach. What do you make of those links?
Is there any point in getting rid of Xavi and bringing in Rafa Marquez? I don't really see it. He's pretty much as inexperienced. He has said that he'd be interested in the job. Of course he would be. It's be an amazing step up for him, but I don't really see the benefit. Last season with Barcelona B, they finished 4th. They then lost in the playoffs to Real Madrid. He hasn't done anything that suggests that he's the second coming of Pep Guardiola. I don't really see the progression there, but it does feel like Barcelona aren't shopping at Waitrose or M&S for their managers. No, they're at Lidl. They're at Aldi. Yeah. They're going for the bargains. They're going for the bargain buckets at KFC. They don't have great options. Yeah. I mean, like, look down this list. I mean, I think Imanol Alguacil is an excellent manager, but 5-6 years ago, would you imagine the Real Sociedad manager, who's currently 6th in La Liga, getting the Barcelona job? Like, it used to be the top job in world football.
Well, you say that, Dukes, but I mean, Ernesto Valverde went from Athletic Club to Barcelona. Quique Setien went from Real Betis to Barcelona. Like,
one of those did not work out well.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it's not like Barcelona have necessarily been, eating at that top or hungry for a big superstar manager to manage them in the post Pep era. Like, I mean,
it just felt like at one stage Barcelona felt like an end destination for the Klopps, the Guardiolas, the Ancelottis, etc. of our generation. Whereas now, I don't think they're able to attract those managers. I mean, I might eat my hat and maybe they'll sign Arteta, but even he's not proven on the same scale as the other ones I've just mentioned. But that's not to say that Alguacil hasn't done an amazing job at Real Sociedad. I truly think he has. You know, he's won a Copa del Rey there. Their season finishes have pretty much got better and better every year. You know, Champions League this year, unbeaten in the Champions League, topped a group with Inter Milan. He's brought through a number of young players. But at the same time, is he a nailed-on success at Barcelona? No. Can anyone be a nailed-on success at Barcelona right now? Probably not. But it feels like a huge job for Imanol Alguacil, in the same way it felt like a big job for Quique Setien, in the same way that it felt like a huge job for Ernesto Valverde. And to be fair, Ernesto Valverde, I think, did a really underrated job at Barcelona. But I do just slightly worry that Alguacil, you can get slightly eaten up by the Barcelona job. And look what it's done to top managers in the past. Look how exhausted Xavi looks, how lost he looks at the moment. I know he doesn't have the same levels of experience, but he knows Barcelona inside out, and he's still been almost surprised by how taxing it is to manage a club of that caliber. So, yeah, I think Alguacil could become a sort of flavour of the month, particularly if they do well in that Champions League tie against PSG, which starts next month and finishes in early March. I think he would be my choice. There's also Thiago Motta, who's doing well at Bologna. Yeah. They were in Champions League contention. They've lost or haven't won in 4 games. I think they've drawn 2 and lost 2 of those. They've dropped down to 7th or 8th. But his Bologna side, you know, he's punching above his weight there. He's obviously got experience playing at Barcelona between 2001 and 2007. Míchel at Girona as well will be talked about. But again, you know, he's managed Huesca, Rayo Vallecano and Girona. Like, that's not really a grounding in taking over the Barcelona job. So I think I'd probably go for Alguacil. Having said that, if you could get a Nagelsmann, maybe he's more suited to managing and instantly succeeding at Barcelona. But would he be up for taking the Barcelona job right now? It's so many unanswered questions. I don't know. I feel slightly lost with this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I echo your thoughts, Dukes. And it will be interesting. I mean, I'd be more surprised if they were to go out and get a Nagelsmann. But in some ways, maybe they do just need a complete culture shift and someone who is not Spanish or like has no previous
DNA,
not attached to the so-called DNA, and coming in and just ripping up the playbook could be something interesting. I mean, if we're to look at Laporta's career, like, he did hire Rijkaard in 2004, and that was kind of quite out of the blue. Rijkaard had like no top level experience before that, no top level experience since then either. But like he did for 3 years at least, did a brilliant job there.
Has he not managed anywhere else?
I don't think so. Let us know in the comments below if not, but I'm pretty sure Rijkaard just hasn't really done any managerial work since Barcelona, unless he's gone to
mega.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that.
So you never know. Maybe Laporta's got someone like Nagelsmann in his sights. But as for the kind of more Barcelona appointments, I mean, you've already looked at Alguacil, Míchel, Motta, obviously previous Barcelona player. Pimiento at Las Palmas there's been a bit of talk about him doing a great job at Las Palmas, and was Barca B manager before that, and was did lead La Masia as well before taking the B team role. And weirdly, kind of when his name cropped up, I kind of remembered that actually he was my candidate to replace Setien back in 2020, just because of the club situation and that need to have some connection between La Masia and the first team, which had been lost under Valverde and Setien in that era. So his name's come up, but Laporta fired him not long after coming in as president in 2021. So that feels very unlikely. Míchel has done a great job at Girona, and he's kind of embedded himself in Catalan culture as well, which would play very, very well with Laporta. Like, he's from Madrid, but he on taking the Girona job, he very quickly started to learn Catalan and has really embedded himself in that way. So, and plays great football and has done so with limited resources. I know, they are backed by the City Group, but that the recruitment's been excellent, and they lost someone like Romel, who was so important to them in the summer to Barcelona, and we're able to recruit really smartly. The Dovbyk signing was one of the signings of the summer. Yangel Herrera's been great. Like, there's been a lot of...
as well.
Yeah, Xavi has been brilliant. Like, that kind of blend of experience in youth has been really impressive. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a poison.
Who your cousin wanted?
It's a poison chalice. Yeah. There are some Barcelona fans apparently who want Mourinho. Which, let's not get into that. I think Mourinho would be, not.
You can't be appointed Barcelona manager after poking the eye of a former Barcelona manager.
You can't. And even so, it's just it's just such a short-term appointment, and and a manager who, generally speaking, has not left clubs in a better state than they were before.
I think Real Madrid fans would be absolutely delighted if that happened.
So I think in some way, someone like Nagelsmann, I think, would be great, but I just don't know if they'd be able to pay his wages. So I think, in all likelihood, it may well be a Rafa Marquez or a Míchel. Like, I do think that. And
not an Alguacil.
I just think Alguacil, what he's built at Sociedad, I just think it would be a real shame for him to go to Barcelona in some ways. I just don't. I don't see the appeal for Alguacil to go from a club which he's built, really, a team that he's built, to a club where he's going to be always playing catch up, always under pressure. Will he ever really have that control?
That's the difficulty, isn't it, with Barcelona, isn't it? Because obviously it's a massive club, probably the second biggest club in the world. I think most people would say. Barcelona fans might say it's the biggest, whatever. It's definitely in the top two. But at the moment, it doesn't have the means to operate as one of the top two clubs in the world in terms of pulling power, in terms of spending. So you are operating instantly at a disadvantage because the expectations are to be a top two club in the world. But the means, the tools you're given are top 20, if that.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, if they didn't have the reputation of being Barcelona, where would they, the club could have fallen apart.
Yeah.
The fact that players like Gundogan, Lewandowski, João Felix, João Cancelo see it as still a destination they want to go to is pretty much keeping it afloat.
Yeah. And there is a good squad there still, but it's just muddled, isn't it? And, aside from the defensive recruitment over the last couple of years, which I think has generally been quite good, even if they're, underperforming at the moment, like, they were still, to be fair, saved on a lot of occasions by Ter Stegen last year. The attack needs so much work. Like, it needs so much work. That's where the recruitment has really failed under Laporta. So it's just a big job, and it's not only that thing of, like, you're coming into a club which has been quite dysfunctional and is recovering from that and trying to recover from that. You're also coming into a club where the expectations are just always unrealistic. No manager is ever really good enough for Barcelona. Very few players are ever deemed really good enough for Barcelona because, despite everything, they still want to win the league and get to the latter stage of the Champions League every single year, despite failing to do so most of the time since Ernesto Valverde left. So it's just, it's a horrible job to take on. So in some ways, like Julian Nagelsmann out of all the kind of, someone who's got that kind of fire in their belly might be quite good, but, like, realistically, I just don't see, I'm not sure if they will pay top managers wages. Like,
it's going to be an absolutely fascinating few months on both these fronts. These are two massive issues, and you throw into the hat that Man United could hypothetically be looking for a new manager. Bayern Munich, I think there's a chance that Chelsea are looking for a new manager. Like, the managerial situation is going to be absolutely fascinating, and it means that some of these clubs aren't going to get their first choice targets, and you just don't know whether. I mean, Barcelona, they're not top of anyone's list right now.
If Tuchel were to leave Bayern Munich at the end of the season, I think Tuchel would be an excellent choice for Barca. I really do. Could they pay his wages? Not sure, but I think he would be excellent in terms of. I just think he, the situation he inherited at Chelsea, for example, coming into Bayern Munich. Like, I think he's got. I don't know. He tactically, he is just a really excellent manager, in some ways quite underrated. And is a bit of a disciple of Pep as well. Like, his philosophy is quite Pep-like, but he is adaptable, and maybe not a long-term choice. But I think if Barcelona wants a bit of stability, at least on the pitch, I think Tuchel can kind of offer that.
Okay, guys, there we have it. those are our thoughts on the Liverpool and Barcelona managerial situations. Turned into a really interesting chat, at least from my side. I really, really enjoyed it. So I hope you guys did too. Let us know who you'd like to see in both those positions. Do you think that Tuchel's under pressure at Bayern? Same with Ten Hag, same with Pochettino. Will those positions become available too? Let us know all your thoughts on all the managers around Europe. Not all of them, but these situations. And we'll catch you later in the week. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.